You're listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast, hosted by Zach Bechtold and Matt Franks. We hope you enjoyed today's podcast and check us out online at beardedtheologians.com. You're listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast, hosted by Matt Franks
and Zach Bechtold. And today we have a very special guest with us, our friend, the Reverend Chrisie Reeves-Pendergrass. She's going to come on, and she's got some really cool things going on and coming up. And we want to welcome you on, Chrisie. Thank you for being on with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah,
really excited to be here.
Wonderful.
Well, I thought about talking, their NPR had an interview with a woman, like a battered woman recently, and like a lot of people called in and talked about that. And I thought that the conversation was really enlightening. A lot of people asked why she didn't leave, and I thought that was a really great conversation. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, let's talk about that. Sure.
Yeah, because I think that that's a really common conversation. And I don't think clergy know that 1/3 of marriages have issues of abuse in them. And this is true across the board, even inside of churches, where we kind of tell ourselves that these things are the world's problems and not the church's, that this doesn't happen here. And that's just really, unfortunately, really untrue. And I think that I get that question a lot, like when I tell my story. I'm like, well, and people are really they're really sweet about it. They're not trying to be mean, but it's, well, can I ask a question? If it was so bad, why did you stay? And that comes from, I think, a place of wanting to understand. Sometimes I'm like, that might have been the worst question you could ask. And like, why do you get cancer? I don't know. Which you can't say to someone.
Right.
But you can say in these when there seems to be some agency in them. And one thing this woman talked about was how she was able to so this woman calls in and says, my partner does a lot of these same things, but people don't understand the stressors in his life, like why he might behave this way. And I thought that was a really groundbreaking thing for her to shed some light on, is that these are complex issues. And I think one of the things I want to do with going back to our podcast is, instead of answering questions, maybe just complicate them. That these aren't cut and dry issues, unfortunately. Because a lot of times, like when you come across an abuser, they were abused. Mm-hmm. That's so true. So how do you, how do you be compassionate to that? Especially someone that you supposedly, like, you're in a relationship with, you care for, you love. I'm part of, you guys know this, part of marriage is loving someone when they're crappy. Which is, at least that's been my experience. My husband loves me when I'm crappy, and that's really wonderful and beautiful. So where is that line? And I think that can be really hard for people to find that line. Like, what is normal human brokenness, and what is abusive, toxic, and volatile?
Well, and I like that idea to not answer the question per se, but to complicate it. Because we justify things, or we simplify them enough to say, well, why don't you just, right?
Yeah.
These are black and white issues. Well, they're not. They're so complex, and they don't deserve a simple answer. They deserve a complex answer that says, no, here's what's really going on, and here's why I couldn't, or here's why I didn't, or here's why. It's more than just, oh, we'll just pack up and go, right? Just stop doing that.
Just stop being addicted, right?
Right, exactly.
Right. Yeah.
And it's so
we do it with lots of things. It's just
we do that with everything, right? Just stop it, and it'll be okay, right? And yet that's not the answer. It's so much deeper and embedded than that. And so I like that idea. I think that's a really healthy idea to complicate it more than to answer it, because for everybody, the answer is not going to be the same, right?
Right. Because what might be truly, like traumatizing to one person, another person might not see that as a risk factor in the same way, because they're just a different person. And so, I just think the world is much more gray than we give it credit for. And I think as the church, we want to do that. And I don't know about you, Zach. I mean, you're still in seminary, but when I was in seminary, I think I got a little bit more black and white, not on purpose, but like you started looking at like, this is black and white, this is heresy, this is orthodoxy. And pretty soon, like you start, this is right and this is wrong, you know, and you start to argue about silly things. This is clearly right and that's clearly wrong. And it's hard to kind of retrain yourself to know that actually these are people.
Right. Now, I think I got really black and white on weird things like the letters that Paul wrote, right? They didn't write that, you know?
Yeah, okay, I'm not the only one. Like, no, that is clearly not him, or that you did book.
You know, like just really stupid stuff that doesn't matter. But no, I still have a lot of that gray area. Yeah.
I went to like the seminary that called itself the Orthodox one.
Right.
So that was like, oh no, that's heresy. That was the big thing that we, you know.
Yeah. Mine created more gray than it ever, and I'm still processing that gray. I feel like I'm 9 years out, and I would love to have some answers.
That's fair, yeah.
But I was thinking, because you brought up the NPR about the abused woman, and I was listening to NPR earlier this week, and they were talking about brain trauma and how sometimes brain trauma will change behavior. Yes. And they were talking about, there was this instance of, there was this guy who his stepdaughter was murdered, and like this guy ended up learning to, like, he got to know the killer. And like the whole process of that was powerful, and just listening to that whole thing, like, man, you want to hear a thing on like what forgiveness looks like, and some other things like that could be healthy for our congregations to hear. Like, this is one of those times where, like, and I would go look that up, and I mean, I know I didn't give much detail on it, but it was just, it was like 2 days ago on brain trauma on NPR. I mean, surely there's only about 12,000 different articles on that. I think that those, and you brought it up, is it looking at these people as the people of God and created in the image, and that there's some brokenness there that that really only God can take care of. And sometimes that's hard to hear in our society, that is a pill, take a pill, feel better kind of deal. And wrestling with that from a theological standpoint of talking about suffering and the unhealthy habits that we could cause in our lives that causes us to distance ourselves from God, and what can we do to have some redemption and restore that relationship. Those are mental health is definitely a great theme within our theological work that we could be doing to shape in our world. Is just a problem, and we've talked about this, is that we just I don't know if we're trained well enough to be able to do some of that work. And then I know, like in my community, in some of the communities I've served in, we may not have somewhere to send somebody, or there may not be resources to send somebody. And that's that's right there, that's where I think we're really wrestling, is the resources and the healthy resources of doing it as best as we can.
We're really good at, as a church, addressing places where people put themselves into graves, but we're not good at addressing where life puts us in the grave. Like, what does that mean that God resurrects everything? Right. But we're really good about talking about sin. Now God can resurrect you from when you did something that is damaging. Right. But like trauma in general is like, we don't know how to talk about that, because there's like an otherness to it, like this person harmed you, or this thing harmed you. And mental health kind of feels like that to a lot of people, like this outside thing. Right. And I don't know if we know how to talk about things that potentially take life from us that we can't direct back to ourselves. And I think people do that because they ask that question, why don't you just, because they need you to have agency in it. Because if you don't have agency in it, I think it makes us afraid that other things can happen to us. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so I need there to be a reason for you to be going through this pain, so that I can avoid that reason, so that I can avoid that suffering. Right. Which I get why we do that, but I'm not sure it's really helpful to anybody.
Well, it's like when the vegetarians in my congregation tell me I need to eat, have a vegetarian diet, and I look at them and I'm like, nope, I like steak too much. Like, no, absolutely. I understand. Yeah, it's a good idea, but
and I can never be vegan because I like cheese.
Yeah, I mean,
right.
There's too many. I mean, there's just if I die fat and happy, what more can I say? I was happy.
My favorite part about coming back from, I've gone to the Holy Land a couple times. My favorite part is bacon. Like when I get back, like I couldn't be Jewish either.
Right.
Not just because I love Jesus, but because I love bacon.
Because I love bacon. That's really the big thing.
For some people will elevate bacon above Jesus.
I don't know. Who are these crazy people?
Hipsters. They're hipsters.
This might be why my pants don't fit as well. I'm inside today, really.
Oh, that's funny. This is great conversation. Chrissie, I want to thank you for coming and complicating things for us. It's good.
I love that that's what I'm known for with you. I complicate.
Yeah, it's great. You complicate things for us. But I think that's really good, because what we're here to do is to create that conversation and that space for not to give people answers, but to start the conversation. And we hope for all of you that are listening, if you've heard something that we've said and it sparked this need to dig into therapy or to talk to somebody, please go find somebody to talk to, whether it's your pastor, a therapist, or both, or everything in between. If there's something on your heart that's weighing you down, please find somebody to talk to, and somebody that will truly listen to you and not just give you the answer, somebody who will complicate it. I think that's great, right? And I'm an armchair therapist at best, so maybe my advice is wrong, but find somebody to talk to. And Chrissie, like Matt said, if you can, when you guys get things up and running, send us links. We'll get it out there to our 3 or 4 listeners, and yeah, it'd be great.
Your wives will know about it. It's great.
That's right. Our wives will know about
you're asking. That's stretching it right there.
Because they don't listen to it.
They're not in the 3. But you got an open invitation to come back on anytime.
Thank you.
And talk about the work that you all are doing with the podcast and everything else that you do. But again, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And for everybody else out there listening, check out beardedtheologians.com for all of our past podcast and blog links, as well as you can go on and buy stuff and help support the podcast. And for the Bearded Theologians, I'm Zach Bechtold.
And I'm Matt Franks.
Thanks for checking us out.
We hope you've enjoyed the conversations that we've had today on the Bearded Theologians Beardcast, and we'd encourage you to continue those conversations online at beardedtheologians.com or on our Facebook page. We also hope that you pick up a couple of coffee mugs to satisfy your coffee mug collection. Have a good day.